What's going on, y'all? Welcome to episode 16 of the Speak Up Sports Podcast with Cass, Chris, and Shy. What's going on, fellas?
Yo.
What's up, y'all? What's up?
Glad to
What's
be
up?
back. Let's get it. Big week.
I'm glad to be back. Big week. Another week where we're talking about unfortunately, another blowout for your squad, Chris.
Terrible.
But, with that being said, it wasn't just a bad week for you. Both me and Cass had some tough losses. I had a blowout. The Colts had a blowout with the Cincinnati Bengals, and the backup quarterback was a little frustrating. Cass,
Yeah.
It seemed like the story of the Falcons, they always had these close wins or close losses, late minute. In another big game, that same thing pretty much happened in the first game between the Bucs and the Falcons. So another big week, another great week of football. We also had the in-season tournament in its conclusion with the Lakers hoisting do we want to say a championship? What do we want to call it? The in-season trophy.
They celebrating like it's a championship.
The in-season trophy.
Popping them bottles.
Yeah, they were definitely popping the bottles, but hey, I would have popped them bottles too. But we'll get into that towards the end of the show. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get it cracking, Chris. Starting with Philly and the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys was talking that shit. They knew what they wanted. They wanted that game bad. They felt they was better than the Eagles in the first game. Yeah, it looked like they proved it. 33-13 game. Dallas taking the W in Dallas at their crib. What are they on? Like 14, 15, 16 game win streak there?
15
game win streak at home. Crazy.
15 game win streak at home. And I think they're scoring upwards of 35 points. I think they're right around 40 points per game at home right now. What'd y'all think of the game, man? What'd you think of the game, nigga?
Bruh, look, man. It's frustrating. Yeah. It's very frustrating.
Yeah, I can tell.
I mean, I know what my defense is. I know they're not that good, but the more frustrating part was the fact that we had a couple of drives where we're moving the ball, fumble. Yep. Moving the ball again, fumble. Moving the ball. 3 fumbles by our 3 best players on offense. That you can't have that. Like, defense can't stand up. I mean, at least they scored a touchdown. They scored the only touchdown we had. So I can't get too mad at defense. Again, like I said, I know what our defense is. It hasn't been that good all year, but they somehow, some way come up with stops here and there. And I thought we was gonna get it together second half, but like I said, very frustrating to see our offense just tail off like it did. Like, it seemed like, again, another game where low energy. The other team seemed like they wanted it way more than we did. We just, going through the motion, as you would say. So, luckily, we out of the so-called gauntlet. Maybe we can get right. Get some get right games.
Is Seattle not part of the gauntlet?
No,
I wasn't counting them as part. Yeah, especially
never was counting them part. In my opinion. Now, I will say we do have problems back when Russell Wilson with Seattle. I don't think we ever beat them as far as that goes, but I mean, they're reeling too, in my opinion. We don't know the status of Geno Smith, one of their best corners. The coach did say he was going to play, but I mean, if it's a significant hip injury, I don't see how that's happening. But we'll see.
We will see.
Yeah, I kind of, I mean, it was a little disappointing, especially all of us. All of us picked Philly. But Dallas is a good team at home. It just come down to that, like you said, Chris. That's what I was going to bring up too. It looked very low energy. It looked like
from the start. The coach Sirianni looked like he was tired. Jalen Hurts, and he be stone faced anyway, but he was looking crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And more questions popped up. Every time Jalen gets up slow from taking a hit or even diving, he got up slow from just diving one time, which I think it's a little bit of a late hit. But yeah, it was rough. It was a rough game for you guys. You couldn't get anything going. And when you did get something going, you had the fumbles, and to come from your 3 best players, that usually doesn't happen. That probably would never happen again like that. You know what I mean? So I don't take too much stock into that. Both y'all won at home this season. It's as simple as that. Division game, you can't really put too much stock in it. It's what it is. You just got to move forward, and you know what you're looking forward to if y'all meet up in the playoffs. But which could happen.
I'm also going to say, I try not to be the prisoner of the moment, because when you think about it, at the beginning of the season, if you would have told me we was 10-3 after the schedule we had, I would be happy. But it's just the way the last 2 games played out. It's just like, oh my God. But,
on top of how you look throughout the seasons, like just no dominant
Right. It was
wins.
never just
And it makes me kind of think about at the beginning of the season, I kind of said that about the Eagles. You know, when we did our in-season preview, I was kind of like, or our preseason preview, I was kind of like, you know, I don't think I picked the Eagles to win the division, but I was like, I don't think they'll have a bad season, but it will seem like they'll kind of take a step back. And I feel like we've kind of seen that, you know, especially defensively. And the defense, it kind of goes back to the Super Bowl if you really think about it. In terms of the questions, like obviously there was some kind of questions throughout the season last season, but the pass rush was so dominant. Yeah. Obviously, Bradbury was an All-Pro, as well as Slay was playing well, so you couldn't really say too much about it. And then they kind of got quote unquote exposed, even though they didn't. The Chiefs didn't really just go out and throw for 300-400 yards against them. But the second half, you know, they kind of had what they wanted. But one of the things I had mentioned was the switch in coordinators. Yep. And are we seeing that on both sides? Because not only, obviously the offense was moving the ball, but the offense doesn't seem like it has any rhythm. There's no consistency in the run game in terms of how many. It seems like DeAndre Swift is like, he'll get like a couple touches and then just be out for the like 2 quarters and then just come back in, randomly bust another run. And it's like, what's going on with the run game? Even Kenneth Gainwell, you know, he runs well, but it seems like they don't run him too often unless it's like in the goal line or, you know, late 2 minutes. And then on top of that, A.J. Brown, it seems like he just runs the same routes. It's all slants or goes, like, ain't it?
Slants, goes, and little curl.
Where's the end dig routes that he used to do that he's probably most dominant receiver at that. And that was another point of the game was the Stephon Gilmore versus A.J. Brown matchup.
Yeah. Stephon took that personal.
He definitely did. I mean, I don't want to say he got 8 on because he still gave up 7 catches for 80 yards, I think on 9 total targets. But he did force a fumble on A.J. Brown in a big spot. Mm-hmm. And
a big stop on, was it 4th down? Was it 4th down when he got that tackle?
Devontae Smith?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, showing he still got it. Former Defensive Player of the Year, former Colt. Shout out the Colts. Nah, I'm just talking shit. But, you know, is it something to say? Are they missing Shane Steichen? Are they missing the, I guess his name is escaping me, the Arizona head coach at this point?
Gannon.
Oh, Jonathan.
Jonathan Gannon. Because obviously, you know, they haven't had the best season with the Cardinals, but we have seen improvements definitely on the defensive side. They have made it tough on teams. He was a hot commodity. I believe the Broncos were going to hire him had he not wanted to go back and they chose to go with old boy from the Jets last year. So is that something that they're missing at this point?
I would tend to say yes and no, because I get the Shane Steichen part about the play calling, but the play design, everything
play
that
creativity
is coming from Nick Sirianni. It is his offense. That's the thing about, you know, when I look at the fans, they argue like, oh, fire Brian Johnson. It's like, well, he's not creating the plays. He's not the one who has, because that's one of the reasons what you just said about the, you know, where the digs, where the deep ends, the over routes. Like, he's running straight curls and slants, but those are also Nick Sirianni plays. Another thing was we having too many deep developing routes instead of quick outs for Jalen Hurts. That's a design by Nick Sirianni, not so much Brian Johnson. And then same thing for the defense. They're running the same scheme as last year, which is the what they call the Vic Fangio scheme or whatever.
And they all had Vic Fangio last year, so that looks to be even the Dolphins have improved throughout the season defensively.
Facts.
You know, we'll get into their game this past week and some of the stuff that they had going on. But you guys did have Vic Fangio last year. You know, I think he came mid-season, right?
He came in the playoffs as an advisor. Yeah. Yes. Well, technically speaking, he was there all season. He just didn't get paid until the playoffs. Yeah, okay. When we paid him as an advisor.
So is that another key that's missing? I mean, having those voices in the room. I mean, it could never hurt.
It's always tough when you lose both your coordinators in the same off season. It's just tough.
And that's kind of the battle with being good at the end of the day. At the end of the day, because, I mean, who says they won't, Brian Johnson, because the side won't have interviews at the end of the season?
Statistically, Brian Johnson numbers as far as the offensive total, like scoring and stuff, is still up there. It's still up there. So it's still a good thing. Like you said, if let's say we go to the deep playoff run, the NFC Championship, who's to say that somebody won't pluck
he
him
might
and
be
then we got
gone.
to get another person? So,
Which is
Before we move on to the next game, I also want to, we have talked a little bit about the defense and their struggles. Obviously, that's been a talking point for everybody, really, in the national media. One of the things that obviously they lean heavily on is that defensive line, and obviously they allotted a lot of resources towards that position, coming away with only 1 sack. And obviously they made the D line was the they made the difference, I guess, technically for the Eagles, if that's any difference scoring. We thought that they might get back into the game after that, but how do y'all feel about that? Is that maybe the D line taking a step back in terms of Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat not necessarily having as gaudy numbers as they did last year? Or is that just a credit to Dallas's D line? Because they do have some studs in Tyler Smith, or both the Smiths, Zach Martin, Biotish.
I think we expected a step back from what happened last season. Like last season was pretty abnormal what they were doing, and we talked about that before the season as well. But with that being said, yes, that is the main factor because that D line last season was making the linebackers, was making the safeties look way better than what they were, and you're not seeing that at all, and it's a little bit exposed going on. And when you give that a quarterback like that time, just to sit back there and dissect it,
hit
you
you
get
at
what
the
you get
seams consistently.
It's
and I'll also say it's war of attrition. Like they're playing way more snaps than they played last year. Last year, I wish I wrote it down, but I seen it stat on Twitter about just the analysis of their snaps, and like Josh Sweat he's 10 snaps from beating his snaps from last year, and we still have 4 more games left. And last year was his career highest in snaps. Same thing with Hassan Reddick. All of them are like playing like extremely more, and we don't really have the rotation like we did last year as far as the consistent rotation because it seems like they don't want to play Nolan Smith that much. Brandon Graham is up in
It
age
seems like they
now,
played
so
him this past game. I feel like he got a lot of snaps out there.
that's probably one of his most snaps. But you would assume that once we release Derek Barnett, he'll take over a little bit more. But it hadn't seemed to be that way. I'm not sure why. But Dallas
that'll be something to watch. Yeah, they definitely do. Probably top 3 offensive line up there with Philly and Kansas City. And you said something about linebackers, and it made me laugh because I was like, I said that Shaq Leonard was going to come in and have that punch, and he came in and did nothing.
nothing.
the whole game.
Nothing.
No disrespect. No disrespect to my boy Shaq, but they were out there looking slow.
Yeah, but
it was a tough game.
Based off of they didn't also, if you go by Pro Football Focus, he didn't get targeted either. So
yeah,
that had nothing to do with him as far as passing wise. But I get what you're saying though.
Just no like impact. No true impact plays.
Now, with that being said, now the Cowboys and the Eagles are tied up top for the division lead. Cowboys got the Bills coming up this week, obviously. The Dolphins, the Lions, and the Commanders, whereas the Eagles, they've got the Seahawks on Monday Night Football, and then they play the Giants twice, and then they go see their former defensive coordinator sandwiched in the middle. How do you guys see that playing out as the season gets to a conclusion?
This is Dallas's gauntlet. And it just started, last week. But I actually, we'll get to it later with our picks. But I think Philly still ends up on top of this division just because of it's going to be hard for Dallas to win out because that's what they will have to do, I believe. And I think they lose one of these games.
And even if they do win out of control, but if both of them win out, Philly will still take it.
Yeah,
Philly will still do it. Yeah,
better conference record than they do.
Yeah,
that Cardinals loss is really
coming back to bite
them.
But Dak, while we were talking about Dak, he's the top of the MVP odds right now, and
in some books, yep.
Not surprising after Sunday Night Football game where you play like that. But is he on top of y'all list so far? I know it's coming down to it, so it's like week to week, honestly, at this point. But
no, he's not on top of my list. I would still have Brock Purdy. honestly, when we're about to get into this game next, Lamar Jackson, I think, is right there with him. He's not there statistically, but similar to Brock Purdy, it's the performances against top teams as well as the team success and how important he is to that. For me,
Yeah.
Dak played a good game. He wasn't great this past week, or he wasn't great against the Eagles. He missed a couple throws there. Kind of for a while kept them in the game before before the Eagles just the bottomed out. But like I said, I would have him. I would have him tied for 2, probably with a slight edge over Lamar right now. But I have Brock Purdy as my number 1.
Okay.
I think him and Brock Purdy on the same level. I wouldn't be mad at either one of them, but I'll probably, if I had to give one, I'd probably give the edge to Brock.
I'm the same way. I think Dak still hasn't, he's had a great season. He's had a great season, but I think you can't look at Brock, his number, his impact, and be like, yeah, especially his record against top teams and his performances against top teams, and then look at Dak, which is like, yeah, that was a good win on Sunday, but what else? You know what I mean? Not much else outside of beating up on mediocre talent.
Worst defense in the league.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And another point to that, to kind of back up what I was saying, against current playoff teams right now, Brock Purdy is 5-2. The Dak Prescott is 1-2. Brock Purdy has a 68% completion percentage, 18 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Dak has 62% with 6 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. So 3 times the touchdowns, the same amount of interceptions.
More opportunity. More opportunities, better record. Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's who I'm rocking with right now. But to the other guy that I was talking about, Lamar Jackson, put it on an MVP performance this week against the Rams. I mean, what a game, back and forth.
That was a hell of a game.
Arguably probably the best game of the week in terms of, however you like your flavor. If you like high scoring, if you like defensive game, which was another game we'll get into that was big between 2 elite quarterbacks. But that's exactly what we saw. Elite quarterback play between Matt Stafford, Lamar Jackson. I think Matt Stafford had roughly around almost 300 yards, 294 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions against that great defense. Cooper Kupp came to play, had over 100 yards. Puka continues to eat. Actually
too.
Putting up a historic rookie season. He's about 200, 300 yards away from passing Jamar and Justin Jefferson's rookie season. So it'll be interesting to see how his play continues to go. Kyron Williams, another find for them that had 114 yards rushing. But then Lamar on the other side, 316 yards, 3 touchdowns.
Led the team in rushing.
Yeah, led the team in rushing. Odell coming back against his former team, 94 yards. Eaton, what did y'all think of the game, man?
It was a good ass game. I got one thing to say though. The Rams, get into the playoff. They're gonna be a tough out. Whoever they gotta play, whoever gotta play them. Hey, I wouldn't want to play them right now. They looking real good. Even with the loss to go into overtime with a top team like the Ravens, toe to toe against, like you said, Shad, that Ravens got a good ass defense. That's one of the best defense in the league. And Matthew Stafford, didn't blink.
Yeah, it was a hell of a game,
to overtime, ended with
it's crazy that they ended touchdown. That way too. Like the way these offenses were flowing for the game to end that way. First off, the way these offenses were flowing, and they get to overtime, and it's like, whoa, they both weren't ready for overtime, and then for it to end like on that punt return is crazy. Of course, that controversial block in the back that was missed, which was I don't know, but it was still a hell of a punt return, and Baltimore did have some injuries in that game. Hamilton is out.
Yep.
He I guess it's a sprained MCL, but so
not
maybe it's a week to week thing. Not as bad as it could have been, but they need to stop getting injured, man. They got to keep these guys on the field, and that's a tough part because right around this time of the season usually is when they start piling up, especially Lamar, and it's like, well, what could have been. So hopefully they put it all together this season, stay healthy, but it's a good game.
Yeah, and they stay in the 1 seed at this point, especially with some tough losses between Miami and Kansas City. They're in good position to get that bye. kind of like I said, I thought they were going to be the best team. I said they were going to be the best team in the league, and at this point, it's looking like they really have got a good shot because the other team that we think is the best team in the league, guess what? We're going to see them. 49ers versus the Ravens. We got it, 2 weeks from now or next week? And it's going to be a problem. I mean, Baltimore's got a small little gauntlet. They've got Jacksonville coming up this week with Gimpy Trevor coming off of he had a pretty good game. It was a very average game. Right. Three touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Against that great defense. But I mean, they had a good game. It was a good back and forth game with Joe Flacco showing he's the lead again. But right after that, like I said, they've got San Fran, they've got Miami, who's kind of reeling, and then Pittsburgh, who they've already lost to, and that's coming up. That might end up haunting them because
that is a gauntlet to close the season.
They clearly were the better team last time. We might not see Kenny Pickett. Do you guys think that the Ravens? Maybe. Yeah, maybe. You guys think that the Ravens are going to stay in first place, or do you think they'll falter?
It's tough to judge anything about this AFC right now, to be honest with you. Because I didn't think Kansas City would fall this far. I mean, I kind of thought it, but it's possibly. But they can come out and easily lose the 49ers and have a slip up against Miami and be, be third. It's a lot that can happen these last 4 weeks. But that's the great thing about how this season is ended for all these teams. It's hard to judge. But if I had to pick today, are they going to end up with a 1 seed? I'm going to say no.
What say you, Chris?
I'm going to say yes simply because they got a chance right now to solidify it. I mean, you about to play a Jacksonville team who's right there, but Trevor Lawrence is hurt. That's one of the people who could take the spot. Who else could take the spot? Miami. That's somebody else in this. Because if you could beat those two teams, I feel like they have a chance. Because right now, again, Kansas City is 2 games behind.
Yeah, they would have to drop 2 games.
And then who else would you actually give a shot if they had a better record? Maybe Buffalo Bills because they looking real good now. But their record's too low for them. So I give them a 75% chance of taking that 1 seed at this point.
That's fair.
And it's coming
down to it. It's exciting for real though.
And that's another reason why I say Lamar Jackson has a strong opportunity right now to cement obviously that. A lot of times it's been Dak Prescott versus Brock Purdy over the past couple weeks in terms of the MVP. Lamar Jackson, like I said, put forth an MVP performance this past week. Now he gets to go, go to Jacksonville on Sunday Night Football, another top AFC team. Then he gets to go to San Fran. They can afford to lose that game against San Fran because it's an NFC team. Obviously, they don't want to lose that game because that's going to be like these next 2 games are definitely going to be the who are we type games. And I'm very excited to see because last time we saw the Niners versus Lamar, it was in Lamar's MVP season, and they put together a great game. It was in the rain. It was one of the games that Lamar kind of stamped his MVP status that game. So I'm very excited to see that one.
That very well could happen. I think it's the case where if he does lead this team to that 1 seed this season, no matter what his numbers are in the next 4 games, it's going to be hard to not get him the MVP. It's going to
be hard.
So
I just look at the date. Hey, Christmas might be crazy.
It is. It definitely is.
With them and the NBA, but yeah.
But switching to the another team that has an opportunity to get that 1 seed, but has faltered a little bit, Kansas City versus the Buffalo Bills. The story out of this week, it's all been offsides. It's been the refs. What did you guys think about the game, man?
I don't think it was a good game at all, to be honest with you. It was a tough game to watch. They had both teams had solid drives here and there, but overall, like neither team had really had rhythm. And of course, these teams like to show up at the very end and kind of make some magic. That's just what you get from Kansas City and Buffalo now, which we're getting used to. But Kansas City, like we said, these receivers aren't enough. They just aren't. It's just not enough. And there's a disconnect with that offense. It's not flowing, how we want it to be. Again, it's hard for them to score 20 points. Very hard for them to score 20 points. You can score 20, 21 points. You're probably beating this team, which is crazy. So I'm not surprised by this. I mean, we all picked Buffalo, so we're definitely not surprised by this. And Buffalo wanted it. You can tell that they really wanted it. They made the plays at the end. I am interested to see if that touchdown did count. It was like a minute 15, something like that left on the clock. I think Buffalo would have. I think they had a little momentum to come down and still,
I also
win the
think
game.
Buffalo would have scored.
But it was all right.
That's the funny part about it, because that's the argument, Oh, why the touchdown didn't count? I mean, well, the game was still going on, so don't make it seem like it was dead set and wrap.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Man, I'm just gonna talk about the play, man. I just don't like it. Just feels like blame deflecting. Like, we're not talking about a flag that was thrown midst of the play, pass interference. Was it pass interference? Was it not? Whatever. We're talking about a flag that was thrown before you even made the spectacular play. That's not the ref fault. He's doing his job. You're literally everybody can see it. Wasn't a maybe. No, it was clear as day. Like, don't do that. Don't act like somebody holds you. No,
Like,
no.
they out to get
He
them or
lined
something.
up all sides. The flag was thrown before you even knew Travis Kelce gonna catch the ball and throw it back. Awesome play, but all that happened before that. So don't try to say, because what he say, to ruin a play like that. It is like,
Yeah,
I
he
already
was.
threw the flag. What are we talking about?
Everything that Pat was saying was just a little ridiculous after that game. Which, I mean, he was hot. It was right after the game, so I'm not surprised about his response. But he was going
Nah, he
off. So,
doubled
like,
down.
dude,
It was
like,
one thing to do it on the field. Then you went back and you seen the play. You seen the play before you got to the podium. I'm not trying to hear none of that. You seen the play, so don't go back and double down like that. But I mean, like we said, like Cass said earlier, it's kind of like the Eagles. We've been saying this stuff about these two super teams that went to the Super Bowl. Like, hey, geez, the offense is not look good. Defense is carrying y'all, but it was just not one time this season that we thought, oh, this offense about to click, and when it does, it's a wrap. No, never felt like it in any of their games, and
exactly,
not surprised.
And the thing about it is, well, two things is, number one, like you mentioned, that the game wasn't over. That was that was a second down play. They had three more downs. They only pushed them back 5 yards. They had 3 more downs to get a first down and didn't get a first down. So that's one thing. The second thing that I want to mention specifically about the Kansas City Chiefs before I switch over to Buffalo is that, I made the comparison to the 2019 Patriots, where that was Brady's last year. And that team they were good, and then they got their first loss right before the bye, and then it just slowly started to, you could always kind of tell it wasn't completely right. And I think the biggest thing of frustration, or the biggest takeaway for me from Pat's frustration, it shows to me a team that's kind of cracking, if that makes sense. I think, like I said last week, I feel like this is a team that's going to be a first round exit. They're going to get, and I think that the team that they're going to lose to in the first round is a team that we just saw. But we'll get into that a little bit later. But I do think that we're seeing a team that's kind of cracking. And on the flip side, for the Buffalo Bills, I think after the tough week with all the stuff about Sean McDermott, one thing that the whole ref stuff took away from was the decision making before the 2-minute warning that Buffalo had, where they really could have just gotten a first down and completely ended the game, and that situation would have never happened. But because so poorly, they ran the ball once, and then on second and third down they threw the ball, stopped the clock both times before the 2-minute warning, so Kansas City didn't waste any timeouts. And it's just like, it's one of the things, the key pieces in the story from Tyler Dunn that was about Sean McDermott, was how tight he gets during those moments. I wonder, obviously it seems like he got tight in that moment. I wonder if that's like a point, kind of the inverse of what happened. Obviously this was in the playoffs, but what happened with the 13 seconds game with Kansas City and Buffalo. I'm wondering if this is going to be kind of a shift for them, where they got that big monkey off their back during a really, really tough week. They get an opportunity to play the Cowboys this week in Buffalo. One thing that I'm sad that we're kind of missing out on is the Diggs versus Diggs. But
Yeah.
that's going to be a huge game obviously for both sides, for Dak, for his MVP kind of case. But for Buffalo, I really think that's going to be something to watch in terms of that's going to really stamp their season. And if they beat the Cowboys and they get into the playoffs, might
Tough
have to
out.
switch my pick. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Yeah, it's
I
gonna
ain't
be
gonna lie
tough.
to
Like,
you.
I mean, and Buffalo damn near has to win out. They can probably
They
afford
gotta
to
win
win, to
out.
lose
They
one
gotta
more.
win out.
Well, maybe, yeah. I mean, but look, you're
And I'm
seven and
saying that
six.
because the AFC is just tough all the way around.
It's tough,
It is.
but they're Pittsburgh reeling. They're pretty much out. And
Not necessarily, because they
if
got to
but
see. They got a
you
big
got the
week this year.
Browns, you got the
the
Bengals,
Bengals,
the Bengals,
Browns,
like-
Bengals, Jaguars all got quarterback
Broncos.
problems right now.
Broncos, Colts. I mean, it's just
Do
tight
the-
right
do
there.
the Browns
It's tight.
Do the Browns have quarterback issues right now?
I mean, you would think so, but Flacco did have a great
Flacco
game.
getting that playoff now.
Flacco did have a
believe in
great
Flacco,
game.
honestly. I mean, he's on a ready-made team. All he's got to do is his job. I mean, and he can make. I mean, he's got a great arm. We saw already in a playoff run for the Super Bowl. He can make all the throws. He's had arguably the greatest Super Bowl or playoff run for a quarterback in NFL history. And I don't know. Joe Flacco showing me something.
Yeah, but he's still
But that's
To go
why
back-
they're still on his
Buffalo
second
won.
game.
To go back to Buffalo and their schedule, so they have the Cowboys this week, and then they have the Chargers, who obviously we know, and we didn't mention at the top of the show, but unfortunate injury to Justin Herbert, broke his finger, so he is out for the rest of the season, and now we get Easton Stick. And Keenan Allen is actually was reported to be out earlier today for Thursday night's game. So we don't know Keenan Allen's health either. So, the Chargers, that's going to be a game to watch as well. Then they had the Patriots, who is a team that they already lost to, and then the Dolphins. One thing, I said that I was kind of alluding to that Buffalo could be the team to beat Kansas City in the first round. But we do have to watch if, Miami keeps reeling, could Buffalo sneak in and get that division? So that's something to watch. But Kansas City,
that could easily happen too if they lose, because Miami has a tough schedule.
All these
They
folks got some tough schedules.
That's what I'm saying. These last few weeks about to get crazy because you got Baltimore, you got Buffalo. You could lose both those games.
And you got Dallas.
Let's go ahead and get to it. Miami versus Tennessee, man. Let's go ahead and get into it, because
that's why you should not have lost this game. This is exactly why you should not.
Yeah.
You cannot. You cannot lose this game.
That was a real bad loss.
You cannot lose this game. That is something that's gonna fuck them up.
And not only was it as a bad loss, it's not like Tennessee was just excellent either.
Yeah.
Like Tennessee, they forced a fumble on Tua. I think it was the first or second drive when on the goal line for the Dolphins. Will Levis immediately throws a pick six back to him. I mean, it's just ugly, just ugly around, because Miami ended up getting a field goal block by Tennessee. Tennessee muffed the punt that Miami got and took for a score. They fumbled on a triple option play to Derrick Henry that they eventually ended up going in to score right after. And then, I mean, it just got ugly from there. I mean,
you up 14 down late in the fourth quarter
with 3 minutes left
and sell that. Completely sell that.
And then what happened, Cass? Food tried to get out of bounds, didn't get the first down. It did get tackled inbounds anyway.
Just dumb stuff. Just dumb, like, preventable stuff. You got to win that game for Miami. And I mean, they know it, but at the same time, this has been Miami. They when they get down to it, they fold. When it's a close game, you see them make mistakes after fumble after stupid decisions. Yeah.
And it's
sad. Tyreek was hurt, sure, but still, like, not.
I want you to keep that in mind for our next topic, but continue.
You know what's going on under the radar for this one? How they always, talk about Dallas not winning against winning teams. Miami haven't shown to win against winning teams either. They done lost to Buffalo, Eagles, Chiefs.
By Buffalo, the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Like they got some question marks.
And Tennessee, I mean, that's the type of game they always seem to that they're not supposed to win, that they always seemingly do. And credit to Coach Mike Vrabel. Credit to him. Yeah. Will Levis. Maybe that's kind of a turnaround game for his career, because it's a big, huge win on Monday Night Football. in Miami against a playoff team in the fashion that it happened. He wasn't good by any means in the game. I mean, he continues to show that he has tools, but he also continues to show why he dropped, and that he's very inconsistent.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if that's something that turns around for them. I mean, they've got a young back in Tajay Spears who, I mean, he looks like he's got more juice than Derrick Henry, and Derrick Henry looks like he should go to the fastest contender in the world wherever he can go. D Hop continues to make plays. You know, they kind of ate on Xavier and Ramsey, I think. So Xavier gave up 4 receptions for 77 yards. Ramsey got 4 for 3 for 75 yards. So, I mean, it's going to get dicey for Miami, man, because they got the Cowboys coming up. They got the Bills coming up. I mean, it gets very tough for them. And those are 2 games that they really need.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest thing is, and I want to go back to the thought that I wanted you to keep is bringing up my boy Cam Newton. Shout out Cam Newton. He was talking about game managers, and he said that Tua, to start with him, Jared Goff and Brock Purdy, as well as Dak Prescott, are all kind of game managers. What do you guys think about that conversation? Because especially right after Monday night, where we kind of saw where, you know, the conversation has been Tyreek Hill is the MVP or should be in MVP conversations. Jalen Waddle has been kind of in and out throughout the season, and he was even in and out in the game. Do you guys think that Tua is a game manager, or do you guys think that's a negative connotation? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I'll go first. In short, yes, in a way. I think he's also. I mean, he's a product of his weapons and his scheme. I mean, because we saw Tua before, you know, and it didn't look like this. You know what I mean? So obviously there was a big change that came with the coach, the scheme, the weapons, of course, with Tyreek, and health with him. But yeah, I mean, I think overall I would say he's a game manager, but a very good one. You know what I mean? Like, it's not such a bad thing being classified as a game manager. You know, just that just means that if it's just you out there, you know, the expectation should be lower. That's why I take it as, you know what I mean? So with his weapons around him, being a game manager is not a bad thing. And I do classify him as one. I think Cam's right. Like, Cam be saying some, you know, outlandish shit sometimes. But I think he had a point to, like, kind of like wrapped in there to what he was saying. I don't know what you think, Chris.
Man, the game manager thing is tough because you could kind of the reason you would call somebody a game manager because you're saying that their skill players are making them who they are, but we haven't seen a lot of these quarterbacks without these, you know, perfect skill players out here. And so yes, Tyreek is the man. Yeah, he makes that offense go, but I mean, let's take away, like, you know, Jamar Chase from Joe Burrow. I mean, do we know what that really looks like? I mean, his first year when his first year, I mean, he was okay, but I mean, he also got injured. But I don't know how to classify that. Now, if you got these receivers, if Tyreek's just running, you know, slants and screens all day, which he's not. So he's actually putting it there. You know what I'm saying? He's actually getting the ball there. It ain't no short passes. Now, that's the argument with Brock Purdy because, you know, you got Kittle and you got Debo and Christian McCaffrey who like tears it up in yards after catch. And it's like, okay, a lot of his passes might be shorter than you know, Tua. So I'm not gonna say Tua's a game manager
but that's part of managing the game. You know, getting the ball.
That's part of being a quarterback.
It's part of being a quarterback. Getting the ball to Tyreek in those important parts. And I think it's more of a testament of their coaches than anything. And I think that's kind of what he was getting at. Kind of how I viewed it, because you look at all those quarterbacks that he said, and you look at their coaches and their scheme. Yes, these are the quarterbacks that are managing that game, managing that scheme pretty well.
But I also want to say this: I feel like a game manager, if he throws, like, you know, interceptions and stuff like that, then you might, oh man, the game get out of hand. I don't feel like that with Tua. I feel like if he make a bad play, he can you know, bring them back. He can actually make some plays to get them back in the game. I don't think game manager can do that.
What you think, Sean?
And honestly, in Cam's defense, I don't think it was necessarily crazy. Like how I didn't even think that this was going to be a clip that picked up so much like it did on the national media today. It's kind of great. And first of all, before I say anything else, let's put some respect on Cam Newton's name. This nigga is an MVP. This nigga went 15-1 in a season. This nigga has like 75 rushing touchdowns. Pretty much ushered in Josh Allen, Anthony Richardson, these bigger quarterbacks that are also mobile with these great hands. These great arms. I mean, let's put some respect. And he didn't have the greatest receivers either. So like maybe it's a little bit of quote unquote jealousy because he's seeing like what these others are doing. But I do want to say I feel like he really was trying to be like kind of like when you say somebody's a game manager, I feel like you're trying to be negative about it because we used to say that about Tom Brady, especially in comparison to Peyton Manning, which I still feel like Peyton Manning's better than Tom Brady. But that's a conversation for another day.
Another day.
Yeah, but that was exactly what Tom Brady did. He didn't do anything outside of he wasn't putting up gaudy numbers like Peyton Manning was. He wasn't throwing for 50 touchdowns, 49 touchdowns, until he got Randy Moss, and then he got Randy Moss, who obviously is a Hall of Fame receiver, probably top 3 receiver in most people's eyes in our generation. People might be even say number 1. And then he had Wes Welker, who was an all-pro receiver as well. We said that through most of Tom Brady's career. I know most people try to have revisionist history now, but like I feel like he was trying to like kind of say like in a negative way. So because what's the difference between a game manager and a game changer? Because we've seen Jared Goff come back from comeback wins. We've seen Dak Prescott do it. We've seen Tua do it. We just saw Tua do it week 1 against an elite quarterback in Justin Herbert. Mm-hmm. We haven't necessarily seen Brock Purdy do it. Some of it is due to the games he's played, the amount of games he's played. But, even to the Brock Purdy conversation, like when people say, oh, he's got Christian McCaffrey, oh, he's got Debo, Brandon Ayuk, and he's got George Kittle. We didn't say that about Patrick Mahomes when he came in because he had Tyreek Hill, who is better than Debo, who is better than Brandon Ayuk. He had Travis Kelce, who is better than George Kittle. He had Kareem Hunt, who was a great running back when Patrick Mahomes came in. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he had his trials and tribulations that led him to the Cleveland Browns and kind of becoming a backup. But I'm pretty sure he was all pro that year as well. So nobody said that then. They had Sammy Watkins as well, who was a former, top 6 pick in the NFL draft. Nobody was saying that. So I just, how do we make that?
It's tough. I think Cam is looking at it from a lens of, and this is just me speculating, but of him, comparing it to him. And he's not going to say guys like Josh Allen and like Pat, like Lamar
Jackson was one who,
because those are guys. And honestly, he might be looking at it as simple as this. I don't know exactly what his thought process was, but the mobility of it. He named quarterbacks that really ain't making big plays with their legs, and that's probably what he thinks. Does do. It's probably what he thinks are sometimes, but that's probably what he classifies as really game changers. That when the pocket break down, they getting out and they getting gone, in which we've seen with those 3 quarterbacks that I just named. So I think that might be what Cam. Like I said, like he had some truth wrapped up in there, but it did sound kind of but. It was some truth in there a little bit, but I get what you're saying. Like,
it's going to be very interesting if Brock Purdy wins the championship, man. It's going to be very interesting to see what people say because, I mean, if they do, I'm going to imagine he's going to be putting up the same numbers. So it's going to be very interesting because if they win a championship now, I mean, with how the team is structured, we could be looking at a 2, 3, 4-year dynasty.
It's very could be, but I don't know.
So,
I mean, it depends, but
it's a very interesting conversation. But shout out Cam Newton. People need to stop hating on Cam. People need to stop hating on Lamar. I mean, these are MVP.
Just because Cam's career was shorter than usual quarterback, I mean, they think it was just like I don't know. They quickly forgot it.
Like Cam Newton won an MVP in the same division with Drew Brees. And Matt Ryan, who also won an MVP, who also went to a Super Bowl. Drew Brees was a Super Bowl winner a couple years before Cam. Like Like, put some respect on that man's name. Like, and it's not, he was consistently winning division titles against those teams. So, like, against those elite quarterbacks. Like, come on now.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yes.
If he wins that Super Bowl, I mean, that's a Hall of Famer. Bonafide.
That was a bad Super Bowl, though.
Hey.
Yeah.
You said he was tired, coach.
Hey, man, that was ugly, but.